Hey everybody, it's Kat, and today I'm going to be showing you how to do gemstone coloring using Prismacolor pencils. Let's start with our list of supplies for today. First we have a 1099, a 1027, which is going to be our darkest blue, then 1066, I hate the foil on this one, 910, 913, 989, 289, which is going to be just used for highlights, and then last but not least a white jelly roll pen and a Prismacolor blender pencil, which is by far my favorite of all of my supplies. So to get started, you're going to take your just highlight pencil, which is your 289, and you're going to do a very thin fingernail shape horseshoe at the very top where your light enters your gem, and then a tear-shaped, paisley-shaped highlight at the bottom where the light exits your gem. Then you're going to take your darkest blue, and you're going to do a horseshoe shape about 3/4 away around your gemstone. And I say about because each gem is different, and no stone is perfect, so you just got to play with it a little bit. You can see there that I'm going about parallel or even with the bottom highlight, but I'm not going any farther beyond that. Don't color into that top highlight. You want to keep that fairly clean and unpolluted with other colors until you're ready to blend. Once you're done with the dark blue, you're just going to get with your next lightest color, which is 1066, doing another horseshoe shape and kind of coloring into the bottom layer, or just the very bottom of that dark color. You kind of want to create a gradient where the colors are going to blend. Fairly simple. Pressure of your pencil doesn't have to be very hard. The way I do these, I do a second layer I first go from dark to lightest, and then I'll go from lightest to dark, putting a second layer down. So the lines that you see as you're putting this first layer down between the colors, it really doesn't matter because we're going to color that over again, and then blending it will make a big difference. As you get into the lightest colors, with this example, the greens and the yellowish greens, you're going to start coloring underneath that highlight. This way it looks like the light is reflecting out of it. On the last yellowish green, which is my 989, you're going to color all the way and to the line of that that tear-shaped highlight. You can leave a little white halo around it if you want. It's just really personal preference. I happen to prefer to color all the way up to it, especially when I'm blending. Once you get that down, like I said, you're going to go back through your colors, blending the previous color or the color that's underneath it and the color that's on top of it. You're going to blend. This really does help with your gradient and creating a smooth transition. The paper that I'm using today is a Canson watercolor 140-pound cold press paper. It's a really thick paper, and it also has a great tooth to it, which I really like using when I'm using my colored pencils. Also, if you can catch the sale, Michaels has great deals on these pads of paper. You can get it for like $6. So when you get to the darkest blue, you can see that I'm blending a bit farther down into that second and third color. And then I don't really color into the highlight, but I color right on the border between the two colors. This will help with blending. So once you have your layers down, you're going to take your blender pencil and you're going to start with that tear-shaped highlight at the bottom. This allows if you work from lightest to darkest, it'll keep from muddying up that highlight. It'll keep it pretty pure and clean looking. Little small circles going around. You can see that I'm kind of going in a circular around that highlight as my center. When you get to the bluish greens and the dark blues, you have to just keep an eye out as you're coloring. It can pull and completely change the color of your gems. And that's really, if that's what you want, then that's perfect. That's what you should intend to do. However, I just wanted to try to keep the light greens light and the dark blues dark, if that makes any sense at all. Now, as you're blending, if you're not familiar with the Prismacolor blending pencil, Prismacolor pencils are wax-based, and the blender moves that wax around, and it kind of can create little pulled-up balls of color that sit on top of the paper. You can see a bit of it there. If you don't remove those properly, they can catch on the tooth of the paper and leave little streaks of color. So I tend to blow them off using either just my breath or one of those compressed air cans, and then I'll sweep off the rest very gently. I do this especially if I want to keep the clean white paper white at the end in the finished product. Now, as you're coloring the darkest blue and you're blending up to that fingernail shaped highlight, you want to blend all the way up to it, and then you want to stop. You want to make sure that's completely blended, and then you go to the white and you want to pull some of that blue in to give it a tad bit of color, but still so that there's a definite difference between that and the dark blue that sits next to it. Once you have it blended perfect, you're going to take your 1099 and you're just going to do some light cross marks across the gemstone to create some imperfections. Feel free to skip this step if you don't want to. I just like the bit of realism that it adds to it. Once you've put those marks down, you're going to take your blender pencil and just lightly go over it to smooth it in. I do this because I feel that smoothing it in makes it look like it's sitting inside the stone instead of sitting on top of the gemstone. Now, this is going to be a bit weird, but take your lightest green, which is your 989, and you're going to do the light reflection outside the gemstone. This will feel weird coloring outside the line, but it will make a bit of difference and add another layer of realism. Now, to create our highlights, I take my Jelly Roll pencil, or pen, excuse me, and I'm just putting a light line down. On this one, I actually didn't follow my own advice and tried laying down the color all at once, and you could see the scratch marks that the pen tool made. If you don't like this look, which I can't stand, what you're going to do is you're going to do this first thin layer, let it dry. It doesn't take very long, 10, 15, 20 seconds at the most. Then once it's dry, go back and do another layer of white. This will make a solid white highlight without those pen scratches. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me on Instagram or YouTube, or you can find me on Facebook. I'd be happy to help. So, here is the finished product, and thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed and learned something.